So welcome to VTOL VR. My name is Nihad. I will be your pilot today. In this episode today, we're going to tackle the next stock mission for the F-45A stealth fighter. Last time we took on the stealth strike, which was easy when I did it. It could be very easy, it could be very complicated. The targets are completely randomized, which is a good thing about the VTOL VR. And this time, we're going to tackle the next stock mission, which is increasing in complexity and difficulty. So it's called a Counter Bomber. It is a two-part mission. In the first part, we will be attacking the airbase at the Alpha point. So we need to destroy the anti-aircraft and aircraft threat on that base. Then we need to move to the forward arming point and then change our loadout for a purely air-to-air fight, and then attack the bombers that will be taking off from the Bravo base. So basically that's it. There isn't much else to add at this point. Let's talk about the loadout. So in terms of the loadout, what we're going to do is we're going to load up on the AGM-145, so the optical guided fire and forget missiles, and the only exception will be that we will be taking one of these long-range AGM-161. So we will be destroying from afar the target on the far right, just to make it a bit easier for us later on. And then everything else is basically air to ground, full fuel, because we are taking from the aircraft carrier, so we don't need to think about the vertical takeoff. Flares, chaff, full. Let's get it on.
And head to the mission waypoint. You need to clear out the long-range air defenses before we can launch the cap group.
Okay, so while the engine is starting, I just want to talk about one thing. I had one comment on the previous video from Skeptical. Thank you very much for the feedback. The issue is about how people can see on YouTube what's happening, what is happening actually in the aircraft. So what I try to do is the issue with that is that it's very hard to follow because of the lots of motion, lots of camera shaking, because the camera follows my head. It's much different experience for me, because for me the world is stationary and it's only my head that moves, whereas for you guys everything moves, so it's really difficult, hard to keep track of that. I do monitor a lot of racing streams, and any streamer that has tried streaming VR has failed. Whereas racers have the options of racing on triplets, and they can sort of send you the feedback of their fixed camera. I cannot do this in VTOL VR, so that's the problem. I try to play with the camcorder view, which is this one, and then set up a sort of fixed view over here, but then you can't really see what I'm doing with the aircraft. And every time I sort of restart, or every time I load a saved point, this camera restarts, so it's a bit frustrating. So what I'm going to try to do is just try to find a smooth camera. So let's go with the stationary or fixed, fly along. No, let's go with the fixed, and we're gonna get the every 6 seconds swap around, and then you will have the feed from my mirror. I will try my best to move my head as little as possible. I'm going to try to be disciplined. Hopefully that will work out for you guys. So, without further ado, let's try the radio. I don't think it will work because of the sequence of starting the VTOL VR, and the windows may not be active, but let's give it a go. ATC, this is Sierra 11, requesting takeoff. Nope, as expected. So let's use this comms. So takeoff.
Sierra 11, you're cleared to taxi to Cat 4. Sierra 1-1, locked in. Throttle down and run your launch checklist.
Okay, let's do the first save.
Sierra 1-1, shields up, ready to go.
Oops. Okay, let's get the wheels in the gear up. So, the way we are approaching this mission is, as I said, we're going to tackle one of these locations using our long-range AGM-161. So, let's get that first. Let's just get some speed on the aircraft first. So, we're going to add that to the GPS point. And we want to get some speed to the airplane to give a bit more momentum to the rocket. Okay.
Shoot.
And now we're gonna fire off the first of our rocket, and just let the rocket do its own thing. Let's make sure that it's clear from us so that we don't collide midair. Okay, now we're gonna bank left, and we're going to approach the base from the south, basically seeking shelter amongst these hills and mountains from the rockets that are gonna be fired from us. The main target is this, we don't see it right now. It's called the MAD 4. The rockets that they send on you are going to be relentless, very accurate, and you will have a hard time evading those. So this will be the first target that we need to find. They will be composed of 3 mobile rocket launchers. So let's just hide now behind the terrain so we don't get locked on. And then let's time our approach to this rocket, which is heading to its target. So we want to make sure that this rocket gets rid of the SAM onto the far right, and then we can deal with the rest here. So we're just going to loiter about here until such time when we need to make an approach. And as I said, we will approach from the south. The one important thing that I discovered whilst I was practicing for this mission is that if you fire off the rockets and then save while the rockets are mid-air, they're going to completely lose the sight of the target. I don't know what happens, but they just keep dropping down, not even reaching the target, not even close. So don't save until the rockets have hit. So this will be a bit of a challenge.
Altitude.
So you see, I have to remember when I move my head, I need to make the motion as smooth as possible. We can see our rocket is nearly there. So on this screen, we're going to switch to the EOTS. We're going to use day for the sensor because it's easier to spot a target. And then we're going to use a head tracker, and we're going to switch to the AGM-145s. So now our rocket is right at the target. Okay, that's one target down. So let's save and then pop out. There's the tower. Okay, so here's the main threat. Okay, one rocket to them. Then there is the anti-aircraft at each side of the airfield. Okay, we must run now. See? As I said. These rockets have a very, very good tracking. So we're going to try again. Let's just shoot that rocket launcher first, and then we'll deal with the rest.
Over T. Missile launch. Over T. Over T. Over T. Pull up. Altitude.
Okay, let's just stick around while the rocket does its job. Hopefully successfully.
Altitude. 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 Altitude.
So the priority is deal with the anti-air threat first, and then deal with the aircraft. The one complaint about this mission is that the aircraft are very, very slow to deploy. Otherwise, this mission could be a bit more complicated, but a bit more challenging and interesting, because most of the time I destroy 90% of the aircraft whilst they're still on the ground. Okay, I think the first target has been destroyed. Let's seek out the other targets. We're going to use the optical now. Okay, so the target is still standing, so not very good. Let's try destroy one more anti-aircraft position, which is here. And then, again, hide.
Over T. Pull up. Pull up. Altitude. 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 Altitude.
Okay, we're just gonna pop out at a different place this time,
Altitude.
just to give them a bit more headache. Okay, that's done. Okay, there are a few more of these. I think we managed to get one.
Over T.
And then again, run and hide.
Altitude. Altitude. Pull up. Altitude. 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 Altitude.
Good work. Long-range air defenses have been neutralized.
Now,
Probably scrambling fighters by now.
let's
so we'll
deal
have
with the
everything to
aircrafts.
destroy you.
Okay, start from left to right. As you can see, they're still parked in the garage. So 1, 2, 3, And then there's one more anti-aircraft position here. Okay,
Over T.
so that's
Over
it.
T.
Let's see what the effects the rockets will have this time. What I love about the F-45A helmet is basically that you can see the rockets nicely marked on the display. So it's easy to get a better awareness. Okay, let's just hide again. Don't want to take any risks. Should some of those fighters take off, we do have two AIM 9+s, which could be handy.
Enemy spotted. Engaging.
Missile launch. Shoot.
Oh, there's one in the air.
Chaff. Flare. Pull up. Chaff. Flare. Pull up. Chaff. Pull up. Flare. Pull up. Chaff. Flare.
Fox 3.
Shoot. Launch. Pull up. Chaff. Flare. Pull up. Flare. Over T. Altitude. Shoot.
No more fighters from enemy airbase Alpha
Okay.
are showing on radar. Move on to the FARP and reconfigure yourself to take down the bombers.
So the first part of the mission is done. We're gonna go to FARP now. We have to be wary. There are some anti-air defenses hidden in the valleys here. We don't need to engage with them, and we better not. So let's just fly low and not be locked on and spotted. So I think, I believe that the anti-air is somewhere in this valley. So we will try and avoid that. No need to fight because they will not be on our way. Maybe later on when we are coming back to base, but let's see. So this mission has aircraft carrier takeoff, helipad landing, helipad takeoff, and then aircraft landing. So that in itself is a bit challenging, but I have to say the threat in this mission is not as strong as it could be. So that's my only complaint. And I'm not really sure why do I have to go back and rearm. It is a must, otherwise you can't complete the mission. But I could have easily had enough to go to the Bravo base and then destroy the bombers whilst they were on the airfield with about 8 AGMs that I have left. But anyway, the author of the mission has set such waypoint that you have to go, you have to land, probably just to make it a bit more interesting.
Altitude.
Okay, so whilst we're flying, keep an eye on the tactical display because you might get a reading from the SAM site.
Altitude. 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 Pull up.
Okay, so we're approaching the base now. We're going to start reducing the speed whilst we're in the horizontal mode. lose some altitude as well. What we need is altitude mode. We need the radar, so not the above sea level. I usually use this when I'm landing because I can then see through the aircraft. It's a very neat feature. Okay, so the base is just behind that hill. The approach is a little bit difficult to this particular base because of its position. So we're going to approach from this side. We're going to come from the left side and then come in there to the helipad. So now that we reduce the speed, let's change the angle of the engine to 90 degrees. Okay. Then put the landing gear down. And as we are approaching, we are losing even more speed.
Landing gear.
And the base is going to come into your vision right about now. Okay. And okay, now is a good time to turn on the VCAP and just let the plane come into equilibrium, and then we'll deal with the landing. So let's put this to forward. Okay, we're going to use the rudder to now rotate towards the base. Okay. So now it's about using the VCAP feature. So remember, with the VCAP on, the stick forward and backward movement now regulates your altitude. The throttle regulates how quickly you will be going forward or backward. So it's slightly different than the AV42C. It takes some time getting used to, but once you get it right, it's okay. So let's see, our velocity vector is there because we're still moving laterally. Let's tilt to one side to negate that. And we're going to push a little bit forward because we are going back now. Hopefully the velocity vector should show up very soon. That's where we need to land. Let's give it a bit more push ahead. We're losing too much altitude. It's a bit slow to react, this plane, so you need to be very, very patient. Just give yourself a few seconds before the plane starts reacting. Let's maintain the altitude for the moment. And then reduce the speed a little bit. Okay, keeping the velocity vector right where I want to land, and then pulling the throttle a little bit back just to reduce even more speed. We're going to be landing over another F-45A. Let's try and not hit it. Reduce the speed even more. Guys, it's so tricky. Okay, the plane started going backward now. So let's negate that. Get some more altitude.
The other F-45 is all prepped to join you. Work together to take down the bombers. They'll have fighter escorts, so stay on your toes. We've launched Seed Group Romeo to take care of air defenses near Airbase Bravo.
Ground crew service
Oops.
ready. No can do, Chief. To avoid ground crew injuries,
Okay,
turn off
so
those engines.
in terms of the
Acknowledge.
loadout, we're gonna do some. So this needs to be all. We're gonna leave these to tackle the anti-air defenses on the ground, but everything else will be for the. Okay, aim. So 1, 2, 4, 6, 4 of these, and then 8 of these. Let's get the fuel up there. Reload all. And then let's go back.
You're good to go.
Now, as you can see, the thrust to weight ratio is 1.06, so the VCAP shouldn't be working, but in this mission it is. So it's a small bug. I don't know why, but anyway, I'm not complaining. Just so you know, when you reload, go all out. Okay, engine, APU off, and then VCAP is on. Let's put this to the middle position, and then pull the joystick. Okay, and then to waypoint objective. Let's save. I'm still waiting for the objective update. Okay, there it is. So set waypoint, go to nav. And then once we get some speed, we're gonna head to the next location, which is the Bravo base.
Landing gear. Landing gear.
Okay, we're gonna need a
Autopilot
radar
disengaged.
for this one.
Landing gear.
So this is our ideal arc.
Landing gear. Altitude. Altitude.
Again, when approaching the base, we want to be using this terrain here to hide and evade rockets. There will be quite a few fighters in the air, and we need to spot and recognize the bombers. They are our priority, so we must not let them fly away and get caught up in the fighting the bogies. So the HB-101 is our priority. Let's do another save. I believe this is the India wing that is supposed to take care of the anti-aircraft defenses. There is a MAD-4 radar, so let's send that to the EOTS and then destroy that as soon as we can. So with this aircraft, you can basically manage the air targets and ground targets at the same time, which is really neat.
hostile. Engaging evasive maneuvers.
Okay, so HB 106, pardon my mistake. So here is the first one. Let's get the aim fired off. That's the fighter. All I hear is the bombers at this time. This is the ASF.
Shoot.
Another ASF.
Shoot.
Another ASF.
Target locked. Box 3.
Bomber.
Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Pull up. Altitude. Pull up. Altitude. Shoot. Altitude.
Box 3.
Missile altitude. 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 Shoot. Altitude.
I missed. Target is still flying.
Altitude. 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 Pull up. Altitude. Pull up. Altitude. Pull up.
Target locked.
Missile
Box
launch.
3. I missed. Target is still flying.
Over D.
Incoming missile. Evading.
Okay, that's one bomber
Got a
down.
hostile down.
Let's save.
Ah, they got me. I'm punching out.
So let's try to look for the next one. Okay, so probably it's still on the ground. Let's deal with these.
Chap. Flare. Pull up. Chap. Pull up. Flare. Pull up. Chap. Over D. Chap. Flare. Engine failure. Engine failure.
Okay, that didn't work.
Altitude.
I'm going down. Detecting.
Shoot. Missile launch. Over D. Altitude. 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 Missile launch. Shoot. Pinball. Altitude. 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 Missile launch.
Okay, there's another bomber.
Chap. Flare. Missile launch.
destroyed.
Altitude.
Return to the fleet as soon as possible.
Altitude.
Okay, now we could engage with the others. Probably let's see who follows us. But we don't want to get near to the air defenses and risk
Altitude.
being taken down.
Missile launch.
So let's just deal with this one.
Over D. Over D. Over D. Over D. Over D. Shoot. Chaff. Flare.
Okay. Save. And then RTB. Remember, this path is taking you straight up above those anti-aircraft positions, so we're going to use a slightly different path. Keep low. Keep an eye out on the anti-air positions on your tactical display. The radar we no longer need. Okay, let's get rid of the surplus here. Tap, 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 and then pull the switch, click it.
Altitude.
Whoops!
Altitude.
That was funny.
Altitude.
Keep the eye on the road. I don't know what's the equivalent for the flying, but I think you know what I mean. And nearly smacked into the hill. Okay, let's go back to the TSD.
Altitude. Altitude.
Now, shall we do vertical landing or conventional landing? Let's do conventional or so-called arrested landing. So we're going to use the wire, we're going to use the hook, we don't need the launch bar.
Altitude. Altitude.
So we have enough fuel. Let's speed up a little bit.
Pull up. Pull up. Altitude.
So what is really specific about the way I did this mission was to use the terrain as a shield, basically. Because if you get out in the open, you are faced with anti-aircraft defenses from the ground, as well as aircraft in the air, and you stand very little chance. So if you do what I did, try and keep distance, fire up the rocket, then dive down, escape, and then pop up again. And so that's a very effective way to do this mission or any other mission, provided that the terrain is friendly to you. So we're gonna avoid this little town and airfield there, just in case that there's any remaining anti-air defenses. I don't think there is. I think we've destroyed everything. And should there be any rockets fired on us, we need to be aware of where we can hide, where is the sort of shelter. So we have the little river bed here that we could use to get away, but I don't think there is any threat. The radar is not reading anything. So we did a number on them. Lovely. announce our arrival.
Sierra 1-1 tower, copy. Fly heading 077. You can expect runway 26.
Okay, so one trivial issue or a trivial information.
To land on the carrier.
Okay, so it said runway 26. What does that mean? It's those two numbers that you will see at the beginning and end of every runway, and it's basically it's a compass orientation. So 26 will tell you that if we turn our head, so 26 will be that orientation. I'm not able to twist my head all around, but this basically gives you an information on your approach. So let's try and set. Okay, so we use the EOTS just to see how well we are aligned with the carrier. So we need the nav screen as well. Let's do a nav screen. And then we have these approach markers, which we're going to use creatively. So let's get the hook down before we forget. And then let's get the altitude below 1,000 meters. And then gently start coming around, getting a lot of speed in the process. And we want to hit the entrance to these approach markers bang on. Okay, so we are not well aligned. So let's keep the altitude at about 500 meters. Get the gear down. Because this plane does not have manual flaps, it does its own automatically, so putting the gear down helps to communicate to the plane that we are in the landing process, and it will do the flaps on its own. It will manage the flaps. So the alignment is okay. Now with this plane you could tilt the engine a little bit. That will help you with the speed on the approach, but I'm going to do it fully conventional this time. So we got the gear down, we got the hook down, all good, we are well aligned. Let's make sure the velocity vector is where it should be, and soon we will have the aircraft landing assistance gadget thing going on, where we will have a little bar on the left side in a ball that tells us whether we are approaching too high or too low. I'm surprised it's not showing. Okay, there it is. So we are a little bit too low. Keep an eye on the ball, literally.
Lined up.
And then let's hit the wires and then pitch up.
Lined up. Wave off, you gotta go around.
Oops.
Welcome back. Follow the taxi path to your parking area.
Okay, that was better. That was good. I did say before I did this, so this could have been a bit of a disaster. But anyway, so I managed it from the first go. So that was it. That was the mission. That was the bomber mission. As you could see, it was relatively easy. It could have been more challenging if those planes deployed a bit more quickly, but you know, it is what it is. The next mission is even more challenging, so we'll tackle that when we get to that. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.